My name is Nick Martin with the Pros Closet, and I'm here with Terry Holben, original owner of Salsa number 6, and he's here to tell us about his bike and the history.
Yeah. I got it in 1982. I screen printed the decals for Ross Shafer back then, and that's how I acquired the bike frame and then built the parts up for myself from a bicycle shop, Raincross Cyclery in Riverside, California. Did the final build on it. Originally it was a charcoal gray color, and when all the fancy paint jobs came out, I decided it was time to repaint, and so I painted this bike myself. So it spent most of its life. It's 32 years old, so it spent 30 years of it in this format of color. Originally from California, so we rode a lot of San Diego County and a lot of different areas. I've done some bike tours on it down the coast of California with some drop bars from another vintage bike that I have converted over for it. But it's a pretty awesome bike. It's the biggest one that he built out of the first 6. It's considered a fish mouth, but mine had the top tube rotated when he mitered this. The tube's mitered in back, but he also drills through and pierces the top tube with the seat tube, and then Philip raises it around. 1 1/8" top tubes, or top and I believe down tube. Frame is a mix of American chromoly and Ishiwata, I believe. It's for the most part all original, except for a few things that I've taken off that I've throughout the years, but have always kept most of what's going on. It's been an awesome bike. 15 years I rode on this. Really taught me how to ride a bike and how to handle rock washes and all that stuff. It's been a great trainer for that, and made me a really good, strong technical rider. 32 years later.
So Ross made a series of 6 bikes originally.
Correct.
This is the last one of those series, number
Correct.
6. What makes that series different than the following series?
I believe that at that point in time he shortened the chainstays. These are 18.5-inch chainstays. You can see how much gap I've got back in here. Actually did a ride in Ojai, Sespia Hot Springs, and we got rained out with it because of the weather. And everybody else's bikes were all loaded up with mud, and mine had a lot more clearance in there and did a lot better with it. I think in those days he shortened the chainstay and made a few changes like that. The first 6, actually one of the first 6 doesn't have, because it was too small to do the fish mouth on it. So there's only 5 of the first 6 that have this seat tube mitered, and none of the others, no bike after production from that has that on there.
Is there anything unique about the fork setup that's different than the other ones?
Fork crowns, he used his fork crown for a while, but I purchased another one from him for a girlfriend later on, and he had filed these smoothed out a lot more, and then eventually they went to, because everybody in the industry kind of had gone to the unicrown fork, which I thought was a loss. There's something about a vintage bike, to me a really vintage bike is going to have a pressed in fork crown like that, or machine crown. And it's not going to be that the unicrown. It was a way to save money and make a fork faster. There's a lot of time and energy that goes into that fork. Yeah. There was out of the 6 bikes, the story goes, and this is all documented on the internet. I built decals, and I guess apparently did T-shirts for it. I don't remember doing the T-shirts, but I apparently did a run of shirts for him. And then there was another gentleman who built like the bars and another component, and then another guy built the fork crowns. And so each of us got a bike out of that. And then Ross had his bike. There was another gentleman that was a bike shop owner that was helping him promote this early days of salsa. And he got a bike. And then there was one bike left over for a demo to take in and show a bike shop.
Yeah.
According to records, after like a very short amount of time, he had like 60 frames, orders for 60 frames. It was very backlogged, and which was really exciting for him to be able to do that. It's made with for Selca pumps. We used Selca pumps back then. You could pump up a tire. Still, you can pump up a tire to 100 plus psi with the Selca pump. Original Blackburn rack in the rear. There's a front one that matches it.
Filled with hubs.
Filled with bottom bracket. Mayfac cantilevers. You ran Mathauser brake shoes on it forever until I wore out my last pair, and I don't have any more for them.
Bull Moose bar hasn't been cut, which is rare.
An original bull. I don't think there's one out there that's not cut. And gosh, I don't know how wide that is. That's getting close to 30 inches.
Today's standards.
Yeah, that's like what downhillers are using today.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat. This is not original.
Portage pad
On there, but it was the part of the as the times were changing, people were carrying them. You'd shoulder your bike like a cross racer and make it up some of the stuff. We couldn't ride what we can ride today. The downhill stuff, I mean, if you could take the vibration and the pounding and you could do it, but you couldn't. Fully rigid bike and the way they were, it's the whole riding technique is completely changed, which is expected with technology change.
Yeah.
Suspension. We would ride mini rides back in ones out of Alpine, California, which is North San Diego or East San Diego County. Noble Canyon his bike has seen a lot of Noble Canyon, a lot of Anderson Truck Trail, and we would dream of the days of having a suspension fork. And the idea of making one light enough for a bicycle was just not there yet. But it was something like we always wanted to upgrade to it. I ran a suspension fork for a brief amount of time on it, but then I brought it back to its stock settings, and minus putting the levers back on, because they were the original Tomaselli brake levers are such. Even with my big hands, I'm 6'5". This is a big, but it's a 22-inch, I believe.
Okay.
Roughly thereabouts, but they were still a big reach for my hands, and then. At that time, we're still trying to do things to lighten up the bike.
Yeah.
What can I do? Original rims, I believe, were RM30s, so they were a 30 millimeter,
a little bit wider.
Centimeter, whatever, however that goes. A 30, they're a
Millimeter.
wider millimeter, 30 millimeter rim, and going to these X22s and another set of wheels, HX, which are hard anodized HX22s. That lightened it up. We even rode. Somebody made a 175. Knobby tire, and that's what those rims were made for, to run a 175. And again, I'm trying to get it lighter for our day. That's what we had, the technology and the products that were available to us in the day. The rear hub is a fill wood, both front and rear fill wood, but I had it's got a bolt on as opposed to a quick release, because it's going to be a little stronger. Take the pounding and stuff. Again, early days, we don't know how these bikes are going to hold up, and through what we do and the harshness that was bestowed upon them.
And it held up really well.
Held up extremely well.
Yeah.
The other set of wheels I have has a quick release. Those were set up for you'd have, in that day, you didn't have 6 or 7 bikes. You had one frame and you had 6 or 7 sets of wheels.
Yeah.
You had cross wheels, or you would have wheels with a different cassette on the rear that still you wouldn't have to change out a chain, but you could switch wheels. My road bike, if I was doing up to 80 miles and knew where I was going, like street rides or something like that, it would be run tubulars. If I was going to do 80 and above, I'm on Riverside. If I'm going to ride to the beach or I'm going to ride in the mountains, I'm going to put on my my handmade cotton clinchers.
Cool. Is
what I rode back then, and they were just like a SOA, but it was a clincher. And I wish I could find those now. They got some out there, but they're not quite the same.
Yeah.
And so that's what you did back then. You would have multiple sets of wheels and the one bike, and you'd make a couple adjustments, and that's how you rode.
Right.
And now I've got multiple bikes, and each one has its own set of wheels.
Yeah.
So that's why everything has duplicates of stuff like that. Plus, if you bash a wheel up, break a wheel, you've got a spare. You can go up and grab a wheel. You're not down. You can still go ride. Very cool.
Yeah. Cool.
But, it's a wonderful bike. It's been an incredible part of history. My 15 minutes of fame. It's documented, and
it was featured in Dirt Rag at one time.
Yeah, featured in Dirt Rag in the specialty files. I think issue 105 or 106 or something like that.
Very cool.
They saw it in. I took a special, because of their specialty files article that they run on vintage stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I did a run out to Fruita Fat Tire Bike Festival in Fruita, Colorado, and they wanted to, or they actually didn't know anything about it. I walked up to them and said, "I got something you guys need to see." And they said, "What is it?" And I said, "I'll go get it," and brought it up to them. And Maurice liked it. Actually,
cool.
Fitz Maurice too. He's about our
Yep.
size. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a big guy. So they liked it, and they did a story on it.
Very
So,
cool. Well, we're excited to have this in our museum and keep riding it on the trails and telling the
Excellent.
story. And
Excellent.
we're going to restore it to its original condition and follow up with the restoration process and keep Terry involved throughout the whole process. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Right on.
Thank you very
Best
much.
rides.
Uh-huh.